have an incredible panel, and I'm going to be the moderator. So let's welcome our next guest, Princess, which is Franny, Carlos, and Jose. We're going to talk about maximizing your domestic travels, and you're going to get the best tips. Woo, you're going to get the best tips for domestic travel. Oh, I don't know what's going on. Is that me? All right. How are you guys? Good?
Doing good.
Doing great.
Hey,
Right.
I'm from Puerto Rico.
So let's introduce ourselves. Let's start with Franny. Tell us who you are.
Hi, my name is Franny. So I'm a nationally award-winning assistant principal. I also run Franny the Traveler blogger, and I'm an avid traveler.
Okay, let's go with Jose now.
hello everyone. My name is Jose. I just like traveling. I'm nice and simple. I'm a nurse by day, traveler on the side, just keeping it nice and simple.
Very nice. And now Carlos.
Hello, I'm Carlos from Puerto Rico. Traveler, a student education to be a teacher. I do serving on the weekends, and that's the job that pay my traveling. So here I am in Puerto Rico right now visiting, and Dominican Republic tomorrow.
You're going to my land tomorrow. Very, very good. So these people are incredibly amazing and they're masters at traveling, especially domestically. Let's mute ourselves when we're not speaking so we don't hear like the backdrop. Okay, perfect. So now they say that travel is the best way to get out and experience the world. But sometimes we forget that right here in the US is also a whole nother world. So tell us when and how did you begin to incorporate domestic travel into your lives? And let's start with Franny.
Yeah, so for me, actually, it started off attending teacher conferences and trainings around the country. So the first time I ever got on a plane was actually to head to a national science teacher conference in Indianapolis. That was 9 years ago. And since then, I've been to conferences in like Columbia, South Carolina, Colorado Springs, Denver, San Diego, Boston. So I think that was like a great way to give me the leg up. The great part, it was also expenses paid when I was going to those conferences. So that's a great way to go about that. But that basically motivated me more to want to see the country because I was seeing places I had never seen. And then I also realized I could travel for short periods of time because most of those trips were only for long weekends, which is how I ended up becoming the migration queen.
Yes. What about you, Jose? How did you start?
For me, like traveling domestically, I think it all started in college. When I was in college, I ended up joining a Black fraternity, and a big portion of that is like a lot of like community, a lot of brotherhood. So what we used to do is like we would support each other at our different campuses because not just at that one school. So like on any given weekend, I'll be anywhere from like Providence, Rhode Island, Boston, Massachusetts, all the way down to like Atlanta, Georgia. And that was like every single weekend. So I just like supporting people. So that's how the whole domestic thing started for me.
Yes. What about you, Carlitos? I mean, Carlitos has been to all 50 states. So I want to make sure, I want to know how you started on this journey, which is a big thing.
So when I was a teenager, I was here in Puerto Rico when my aunt moved to Chicago. So we went to visit her, and then the longest drive you can take in Puerto Rico is maybe 2-3 hours. And then she did a road trip with us from Chicago to Orlando, Florida. And that was 24 hours. So I'm like, wow, in Puerto Rico, within 2 hours is too much. But actually, 24 hours, you can enjoy the landscapes that you see on the way. And it's not that bad. So then when I moved to Chicago at the age of 19, then I started doing small road trips to Indiana, Wisconsin, Michigan. And then when I saw that it wasn't that hard, then I started doing road trips all around. I did road trip for 20, 30 days on the west side, through going from Chicago to Seattle, California, then coming back to Texas and Chicago. So yeah, a lot of road trips since then.
I have a similar journey. I started with road trip. Hey, mute yourself. Sorry. So I started with road trips when I was in college. I bought my first car. It was with, you know, when you get that check back from when you go to college, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna use my check to get a car, and I got a car in Buffalo in an auction for $1,400. It was a Toyota Camry 1994 back then. So I was like, you know what? And that was the first time that I've ever started exploring. It was New York, upstate New York, and then I went to Albany for school after that. First, it was Binghamton, and since then, I've been unstoppable. Once I got my license, it was like every summer I would go on a trip. Even when I was a teacher, every summer I would go on a trip, and I even did a 30-day trip in the whole coast of California. So I love road trips, and that's how I started. Yes. Now the next question is, what inspires you to travel domestically? Do you follow landmarks, or are you experiencing like the different cultures within the U.S.? I know for Franny, you want to see all 50 states too, or what inspired you to go to the states, to the different states?
I can speak on that since you mentioned my quest. So I do want to see all 50 states. Right now, I've seen 35. So I have 15 left to go. But I think beyond seeing all 50 states is also just trying to learn the untold histories that is not in the U.S. history textbook. So I'm a history nerd. I was a former history major. I'm an educator. So I know there's just a lot of history that is not in the textbook. So when I also travel, I'm now also seeking to go to all the state history museums, seeing an African American museum, because then I get additional context about the state that I would otherwise not know. And then the other piece is also the local experiences. Like, I'm a big foodie, so I also just want to experience what the signature dishes are of that particular state. And then it's also, I usually don't see people like me traveling, so just wanting to put more representation out there, because I don't see much of me represented when I am traveling to many states.
For you, Jose?
I think like a big motivation for me is to see all 50 states as well. Right now on my journey, I'm at 30 states. I'm trying to see the next 20 in the next 2 years, because I'm trying to see 50 by 30. So that's coming up real soon. But apart from that, right, that's just like a personal motivation there. Another motivation for myself is whenever I do come back home, it's like I always have these crazy stories to like talk about, you know? So when I come home, like my parents ask like, oh, what did you see? What did you do? You know, and then when I'm with my friends, they're like, yo, what? You like somewhere new all the time. So I like sharing those experiences with people. So that motivates me a little bit too.
Very good. And Carlitos, you already visited all of them. So what inspired you to go on that journey? What did you want
When I
to
was a little kid here in Puerto Rico, I used to watch the Bob Ross show, and he used to paint these beautiful landscapes. And I'm like, in Puerto Rico, we don't have this kind of landscapes. So when I discovered that we have them here in US, then I'm like, I want to go to those. I want to take pictures. I want to breed peace in these places. So that's why when I saw Montana, Wyoming, all those states, I'm like, this is what Bob Ross was painting back then. So that was what inspired me to travel.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Well, my journey is also to visit all 50 states, and I'm already at 33 states. So we're almost there, Franny and Jose. We're almost there, catching up with Carlos, right? And what inspires me is the food. Every trip that I make is always gonna be the food. Like I just went to se me está olvidando el nombre. Next to Idaho. ¿Cómo es? I forgot.
Utah?
What?
Utah?
No, not Utah. Right above Utah. I forgot the name of the state already.
Montana,
Wyoming, yes. And I had elk. And he's like, what? You know? So I always follow the food. Like, where am I gonna go that I can have the best food ever? So that's what I do. But now I wanna know, once you've chosen a location to visit, how do you plan where you're gonna stay and what will you do and what will you eat? Like, how do you go about doing that? And we're gonna start with Carlitos this time.
Well, back then it used to be booking only, but today I use Airbnb a lot. So uh, I I like to find unique places that I can stay at. For example, the yurts that I stayed in Colorado and Alaska. Those
Mhm.
kind of small cabins and cozy places, I love them. So I'm always looking on Airbnb to find these places. I still do booking if I'm on a hotel. I want a hotel to relax after 17 hours driving or anything like that. So those are the ones I use a lot. And I do couch surfing a lot, but I don't do it here in US much. So booking Airbnb.
Okay, very, very nice. What about you, Franny?
For me, so I typically stay in a hotel and I usually stay in a downtown area. It's usually centralized to the things that I want to see. I think also for me as a woman, so since I'm usually traveling solo, I feel more comfortable being in a downtown area when I am going to other states. I think when it comes to food, like I said, I usually Google the local dishes. So, for example, I know like St. Louis, they have this gooey butter cake. So I was like, okay, I gotta find where to try this out. Or as you mentioned, Wyoming, they have elk. Montana has their bison burger. I always like to do local food walking tours, and I specifically choose food walking tours because it allows me to try a bunch of different things in the area in a short period of time, but then I also get to see the city simultaneously and get the context from a guide who's from there.
Mhm. That is awesome. Jose, tell us all about. Jose is a master planner. Let me tell you, he presented a virtual travel party about West Virginia. If you see that episode in our YouTube channel, you're gonna be like, "Whoa! I want to go to West Virginia right now," because the way he's so detailed about the itineraries. Tell us, how do you plan?
I mean, I think the first thing that I start off with is like knowing the location and then like what exactly I want to do. I don't really start off thinking about like where I should stay. It's more like what's the location I want to go to and what do I want to accomplish. So that's how I start off. And then it's like, do I want to stay in one specific area or do I want to see like the entire state? So like with West Virginia, I wanted to see the whole state. So I didn't plan any type of hotel. Um, it was just like with my girlfriend, like the night of, I would just be like, all right, we're in this area. Let me Google, see what's like the closest hotel, and boom. But I also have a different travel style too, which sometimes is like I want to have like more of a luxurious experience, something unique. So when I have that in mind, then I just look up like what's like the best looking hotel, what has the best view, what's like the most unique hotel, and then I go based off of that. And then as far as for food, um, I like to like look up the best places in an area. So I look up like the top 10 lists. So literally top 10 and whatever, and just go based off that. And then whatever I'm in the mood for, then I pick that location to eat. And then also I like things that are unique, something different. I like talking about things that people never experienced before. So I look up what's very different in that area. So if I'm in New Orleans, I'm gonna have that frog's legs. If I'm in West Virginia, I'm gonna have a pizza roll, so something different. That's what I go for.
Yes. I am definitely a combination of all of you together because I do stay in Airbnbs, but it depends if I travel with my husband or not because I want him to be comfortable. But for me, I don't care what I stay, to be honest. For me, the focus is usually food. And yeah, that's pretty much how I plan. I mean, I look for the what is that state's top foods and the top restaurants in that state, and then I go to those places. That's how I make it work. And even when we did the cross country trip this past summer, it was the same way as Jose. Like we didn't book the hotels until the previous night when we knew that we were going to that state the next day because we knew we had 17 days, but we didn't know, oh, do we want to spend more time in this specific state? So we didn't want to book too much in advance. And even when we were traveling, I was literally looking at where we're gonna go tomorrow. I didn't plan the trip at all. I was just like, today, let me look where we're gonna go tomorrow, and that's how we did it, going from state to state. So, but usually the way I am a micromanager, and I plan from head to toe all my trips. Waking up 7 in the morning. So if you travel with me, you're waking up early and you're coming back to the hotel very, very late because I like to see everything and do everything. So my itineraries are usually like jam packed because I never know if I'm ever gonna go back. So I want to see everything there is to see, you know. So in that everlasting quest for all things Instagrammable, how do you recommend to someone how to find those hidden gems in locations they travel to? And anyone can start.
I think I'll start. Oh, Rey Carlos.
Oh, I'll mute. Carlito.
Okay. So in my case, nowadays I'm using a lot the hashtags on Instagram on the location, and that's my main search. If I'm going to Colorado, I type Colorado or any city from Colorado to see if anybody else have done something that I haven't done. Also, when I get there, I talk to the locals to see if they know something that is not that famous but is beautiful, and then I go to that place and visit it. And sometimes I find a lot of places that I didn't know they were there and they are beautiful. So talk to the locals and do your research on hashtags, Google, or anything like that.
Very, very good. What about you, Franny? How do you find those Instagrammable places?
Well, for the Instagrammable part, I literally would Google most Instagrammable spots in X location. And usually you'll get lists like top 10 Instagrammable spots, and it'll be like really scenic. So I'll make sure to include some of those. I think for more of the hidden gems, so similar to Carlitos, I would use hashtags. I would also search the state tourism board on Instagram because they're usually trying to highlight their state. So they'll feature a lot of spots you wouldn't otherwise see. If you also search the state on Instagram and then see what locals are posting and try to like dig through that, that also helps as well. And then for me, I also speak to the locals. So whether it's like the waiter at a restaurant, usually the taxi driver or Uber driver from the airport has been really clutch in giving suggestions as well.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Jose? Because you always post a lot of hidden gems, so I definitely want to know how you do it.
So I'm definitely like a combination of Franny and also Carlos. Literally a combination. I Google things, I YouTube them, go on Instagram. When I'm at the location, I do just like Franny. I talk with like the bartenders when I'm at the location. Even like when I'm walking by in like the street and like people, I don't know, I'm just talkative like that with other people. So I'll ask them questions, or they'll give me like hints themselves. Like when I was in West Virginia, I went to like an escape room and the guy there started telling me about other things to do in West Virginia. But one of the things that I do, I'm a big fan of maps. So literally, I just go on my map app. I don't know if y'all can see, and I'll just like zoom in, and then like different locations will show up just like that. And so like that's how I found like one state park that's like next to the Statue of Liberty, and you're closer to the Statue of Liberty from New Jersey than you are from Brooklyn or Lower Manhattan. Or like I do that everywhere. Like when I was in Portugal too, there's things called Miradero, which is like lookout points. And so I would find out like, all right, I got to walk up these steps to see this building off in the distance, and then boom, perfect vantage point. So the maps come in clutch if you could read maps.
Yes. For me, I use two ways. I use Pinterest. I just put any location, and you can find so many guides from so many bloggers that they just put so much information there, and I'm like, yes, this is where I'm gonna go now. And also I use this website called visittheusa.com, and you can actually create your itinerary in that website of where you're gonna go. It's called visittheusa.com, and they have like anything that you want to do, like literally for any state that you want. So imagine all of boards of tourisms of each state all together in one place is that page. So you don't have to literally go anywhere else. All right. Let me see. I got more questions coming. What are ways to get an out of the country experience while you're on a domestic trip?
This
And
one I love to do. So I think one is figuring out what are the predominant immigrant populations of the state you're going to, and then search what neighborhoods they live. So for example, when I was in Minneapolis, I found out from my taxi driver, like there was a big Somalian population. So you can go to that neighborhood. There's also a Little Italy where you could get authentic food. I think the biggest example of that is in Brooklyn, New York. Like there's a whole little Caribbean section where you will find the restaurants probably of every single island there. And even within that is little Haiti. Like you're going to hear the grandmas speaking Haitian Creole. You could buy your spices that was coming from Haiti. So I think once you find the neighborhoods where they live, you're going to have the most authentic experience.
Jose?
I think to find that out of country experience that like a lot of us are looking for, I think a lot of it is like architecture. At least for me, it's architecture and the landscapes. Just earlier in the chat, like we was talking, Franny and Lisandra, about like the waterfall in New Jersey, right? Like we all live close to New York City. You're not gonna see a waterfall unless you go to a Central Park. There's like a small one, but like a real big waterfall is in Patterson, New Jersey. And that's close by. You don't even got to go that far. It's literally like 45 minutes outside of the city. And a lot of people in this area, they hear Patterson, they don't really think like positive thoughts about it. But that's where the gems are. You know, go where people aren't expecting to go to. And that's where you find like some of the best things ever. And so right there, like you have like this amazing waterfall. And I went in the like around Valentine's Day. So you got all the snow, all the ice. So it's like, I don't know, think of like some like Iceland, think of, you know, so it's ice and waterfall. And then like right behind that, you have like the home stadium. It's abandoned now, but still like real historical, where like the New York Black Yankees used to play there. And you know, you get like all these like little hidden gems because people don't talk about it because people don't want to go into these locations. So look for what's a common thing that you see in your area of the United States that you live in, and think about what's different and try to find what is like that close by, and you'll be surprised with what you find.
Definitely surprised. It's crazy because he went to that park, to the waterfalls, and we were there the same exact day and we didn't know. But I think we went in the morning and you were there in the afternoon or something. And I'm like, you posted, and I'm like, oh my God, I was just there. Like for real. It was crazy because we definitely didn't plan it. We didn't see each other there, but we, you know, our methods, I guess, are the same about exploring our own backyards. And I mean, once you start looking, like you find literally the United States has all the cultures of the world in this country, which is like the best. So you can literally go to Cincinnati and experience Oktoberfest almost the same way that if you went to Munich. So it's like, wow, did you know that they actually have 500,000 people attend Oktoberfest in Cincinnati? So those are the little things that we like could look for to experience a different culture, a different country, right in the comfort of being in this country. And even like Staten Island. Like, have you ever been to Staten Island? No, because most people don't go. But Staten Island has amazing gems, and we only focus like on Manhattan and maybe Brooklyn. But even the Bronx, like, hello, there's so many things in the Bronx. I mean, don't get me started. But Carlitos, what about you? How do you experience another country or another culture, but here? No te escuchamos.
On the same way, I look for unique states. Talking about waterfalls, I went to the Havasu Falls. Those are like down the Grand Canyon. And I've been to the Grand Canyon before, but I never seen this waterfall with like blue water. And there's like two sets of waterfalls. And then I'm like, I only see this in Costa Rica or Philippines. I didn't know we had this kind of waterfall in US. So I quickly found out how to get there, and it was inside a Native American reservation. So it was so hard to get in there and to get the permits. And nowadays they charge a lot, and you have to stay 4 days. But when I went, I could do it for 2 days only. So it was nice. It was beautiful. The same way a lot of people go to Key West, down to Key West, but not a lot of people know about Dry Tortugas Island. You can take a boat from Key West and go there, and it's a fort, and it's the most beautiful waters on the mainland. I will tell you, it's like clear water, white sand beach, beautiful, beautiful. So I didn't know about this place, but when I got to Key West, I saw that it had like a tour. I'm like, I'm going there, and I went there. Beside Hawaii, that was the most beautiful beach I've been to in US.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy. And another question, because I have lots of questions, and the audience, please start asking your questions because I know you have a lot of questions. So I want to make sure we get to them. How do you get the most out of your budget when traveling? And let's start with Jose.
All right. So the way I go about this, right, is I usually save up. Like I think about the things that I'm going to like spend before I go. That way, when I come back home, it's not like, oh, I got to work so much overtime to make it all back. Um, I think with me, it's not so much like beforehand, it's while I'm there, right? So I use the Chase Sapphire Reserve card. So with that, I get like I have a lot of travel points on that. So I use that for like my car rental, for my hotel. Like most of the times when I stay at a hotel, it's basically free. Like it's all paid for. Um, then the other thing is like in certain locations, it's not going to apply to every location, but like try to negotiate something or see what days like are cheaper to go to. Like some of these museums are free on certain days. Go on those days, and then plan something else for a different day. That's how I cut down on my costs a little bit.
What about you, Franny?
For me, I think getting the most out of your budget goes hand in hand with getting the most out of your time. So for me, I like to do a lot of long weekend getaways. So I would literally leave Friday after work and then come back Sunday or come back Monday if it's a long weekend. So also maximize times where you have federal holidays falling on a Monday. So whether it's like MLK weekend, whether it's Memorial Day weekend, whether it's Columbus Day weekend, because you already have extended amount of time. So if you do that, you can spend a full 3.5 days in whatever USA state like you decide. I think also is flexibility. You either have to be flexible with the dates or you have to be flexible with the location. So for me, as an educator, I know I don't have flexibility of dates at all. So what ends up happening, I will go on a website like skyscanner.com and then search the specific dates I know I want to travel and see what is the cheapest location and then go for there because I'm trying to travel everywhere. However, if you are really set on a location, then you can search the reverse where you search the location and just see what dates are the cheapest and go from there.
Sounds good. As a former teacher, I can vouch for that too. You have to plan very well to make sure that your money goes as far as you can. And one of the things I did is travel with people because you can easily get a room for yourself. But if you can get a room with 3 other people, then you're paying 1/4 of the cost of that room. So I always say, don't wait on friends. Yes, if you have to wait on friends, just go. But if you can bring with friends and bring your cost down, do that, Carlitos, how do you do it? Because you've been to so many places, including all 50 states, which I'm still like proud of you for accomplishing that and your hashtag goal.
Thank you. Well, in my case, I don't use any credit cards. I never use credit cards, so I do have to make a budget. I do need to save money. So let's say if I want to, I start with buying the ticket. I got the money to buy a ticket for September. I buy it, and that's it. I need to make a budget for it. So like for Alaska, with my partner, we needed to decide. We have this amount of money. So are we gonna spend them mostly on tours, or you want to have nice dinners, or you want to spend it road tripping? So we decided to do tours like glacier, snowmobile, going down to SeaWorld. I'll everything that we did, and we skipped the good dinner. So we basically ate bread with roasted chicken for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm like, this is what you want. We could do it. We are not gonna die for eating bread and chicken. So that's the way we did it, because Alaska is not that cheap. So we needed to decide what we were going to do. So it depends where you're going and what you want to do. And then from there, you make your budget and you make sure you don't overspend when you're there.
Yeah, that's why most people leave Alaska for last too. They're like
Yes.
usually leave Hawaii and Alaska for last. Yes. Okay, let's welcome questions from the public. So I know people, they ask what was the websites or what are apps that you use to when you travel the US, and I said visit the USA.com. But do you guys have any other apps that you use to plan your trips or any websites?
I would say not necessarily an app, but there is the Facebook group, Visit All 50 States, and it's a good community of everyone who's passionate of seeing all 50 states. So searching through that, a lot of times people would post hidden gems. And then similar to you, Pinterest is clutch. There's so many links to blogs with itineraries on there.
I am part of that group too. So it's and also hashtag 50 by 50, because that one sometimes people post stuff too. Carlitos, sorry.
No, I just joined the group like last week. I wanted to post my video on the 50 states, and I found that group, and I'm getting on the news feed. It's really good. But I don't use any apps to plan the trips in USA. I just, like I said, Instagram, Google, and from there I go.
Very good. What about you, Jose?
Most of mine is just Google, YouTube, and then literally looking at that map app and just like zooming in, zooming out, going all the way across, just finding what's different out there.
Okay, very cool. So now we're gonna bring up the questions from the audience. Let's see. Have you ever done a cowboy camping, like a do ranch type of trip? That's from Sylvia. That's any of you have ever done that? Not specifically cowboy, but I've been camping.
Well,
so let's
camping,
switch the
yes.
question a little bit. Where have you been camping, and what was your best experience?
Yeah, I do camping a lot. There is a website where you can find free camping spot on US. I don't have it with me now, but I can post it later on my stories. There is campgrounds that you have to pay. If it's worth it, we pay for it. And I do glamping. I done yurts in Colorado and Alaska, where you have to put the bonfire, the stove to heat for the heat inside the yurts. Yes, so I love camping. That's one of my main things that I enjoy.
Yes. Do you guys camp too, or you go glamping? No. Well, one
On
thing
my bucket list, but I have not gone glamping yet.
Yes, I really want you to check out Hip Camp, HIP Camp, because they're like the Airbnb but for camping. Everything is outdoors. You get tents, you get RV parks, you get cabins, and what they do is that they get private land, and then the private land of actual people's homes, then they rent those spaces for people to stay in there if you want to go camping. So it's not like regular stuff. It's like people's homes. They're but outdoors, the outdoors of people's homes. And so check that one for sure. Hip Camp. All right. The next question. What's your top city you have visited, and what is one food you would like to have now from your travels? And that's Jasmine. Carlitos, let's go with you.
My favorite city in US, Chimins?
Yes.
That the question? Okay. Well, I love New York. I love spending weekends in New York in Times Square. Every time I've been in Times Square like 20 times, and every time it's like, wow, this is a movie. You know, like that feeling that you are on TV. But my favorite city is where I live. That is Chicago. Chicago, why? Because Chicago for me is the perfect balance between all the cities in US. It's beautiful like New York, but it's not that crazy like New York. It's not that calm down like LA. It's clean. It's beautiful. We get snow, but New York gets snow too. So for me, Chicago is my number one city in US.
Mm. And Chicago has a great food scene, so I can't wait to go to Chicago. What about you guys? What's your favorite city?
I think I'm in the same boat as Carlito. However, it's not Chicago. It's going to be New York, and it's because of the food scene. So many great restaurants out here. There's always something to do. Before COVID, any time of the day, whatever your style is, there's always something going on, something to see. And in terms of food that like I would like to have, I still remember my time in Commander's Palace. That's in New Orleans. That's one of the restaurants down there, one of the top restaurants. The turtle soup and the steak I had down there, out of this world.
Mm. You guys are making me so hungry. What about you?
For me, so Chicago would be the place I would move if I would move from New York. However, a less known area that I also is in my favorite is the Twin Cities, which is Minneapolis and St. Paul, Minnesota, which seems pretty odd. But when I went there, I was just surprised of like there was more diversity there than I expected. Like there's many immigrant populations there because people who can't afford to live in Chicago, they end up going to Minnesota. There's apparently a lot of jobs available there. There's also good waterfalls there too that's accessible in the main city. So the food was really delicious because of a lot of the immigrant populations that are in Minnesota. In terms of food, what I do think about a lot was when I was in San Diego, the tacos were on a whole nother level, especially because they're so close to Mexico. So you have that influence. They're making like fresh tortillas. The seafood was super fresh. It was just an amazing experience no matter what place I went.
Yes.
The fish tacos in San Diego are the best fish tacos I ever had. They're beautiful.
Yes, they're simply delicious. Well, for me, what dish I wish I had. I mean, I love food so much. I don't even know what to decide, but what always comes to mind is a pizza with caviar that I had. It was like a small pizza like this, and it was just full of caviar. I know it's not specific to any state, but I just loved it. And it was at La Part, which is the restaurant I'm going on Thursday, which I mentioned, because I just love the way they cook, the finesse of their food. And if you want to come with me, I'm going to plan a dinner for my birthday next month. So let me know so we could go all together. So we can experience fine dining together in New York. All right. So any more questions from the audience? Oh, more. What do you look for to stay away from tourist traps? And that's from Christian. So Jose.
I mean, that one for me, I never chase the hype. I mean, it's just my personality, my style. I'm more of a low key type of guy. Don't get me wrong, I like my fun and everything, but I tend to stay away from that because like the hidden gems, that's really where like I thrive. That's the stuff I like looking for. So, it's all about your personality. Just try to find out what are like alternatives because a lot of cities that do have these tourist traps, like just a couple blocks away or a few minute drive away, you got something very similar to that, and it's lesser known, and you get it all to yourself too.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Jose? I mean, Jose, Carlitos.
In my case, I don't mind going to touristy places. For example, Times Square. I don't care if it's full of tourists. I just like going there. But obviously, if I can avoid it, I avoid it. And going to rural areas that are not that famous, it helps. Like to get away, or if you're going to camping or doing hikings, that's less crowded places you can enjoy too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say for me, I appreciate both the tourists and the hidden gems because I feel like there's just certain things when you go to a state, like, did you really go to that state if you didn't do it? Like, if you were in New York and you haven't seen either the Brooklyn Bridge, Empire State, Statue, like, there's certain things that are iconic that you should see at least once. But I think coupling it with the hidden gems, I think trying to get away from the main downtown area helps with that. And then also taking public transportation and just going where the locals are living.
Yes. Are you ever afraid of like venturing in an area and then like that area is not too safe?
I mean, I would try to like Google ahead of time, like, what areas are safe and not safe and speak to locals about that.
I mean, sometimes it is also a very personal experience because a lot of people could say, "Oh, Brooklyn is not safe," or "The Bronx is not safe," and like I go there and it's like it's perfectly fine. Like,
Right.
You know, when I visited Washington D.C., I never thought they have like ghetto places, and we started walking, and all the students were in this place. Like it was kind of scary. So sometimes where you think there is nothing dangerous, it could be. So that's why researching before is important.
And we have, thank you so much. And we have one last question. What's the last question? What has been your most unexpected surprise traveling domestically? And that's by Sylvia. Who wants to answer that? Jose, go.
Yeah. So one of the biggest surprise I have, like I live in Westchester County, which is not that far away from New York City, right? So I was born and raised up here. Literally back in September, while doing those like map searches, I found a waterfall literally 20 minutes away from me. And that's actually like my cover picture on Instagram, on YouTube, like everywhere. And it's like it's a whole marshland. And if you walk past the marshes along the cliffs, you come across like a waterfall. And it's like, yo, who would have thought this close to home, you know? So that's my biggest surprise.
What about you guys? Any unexpected surprises?
Yes. So in Montana, we were staying in a cabin, the only cabin on top of a mountain where you could see the border from Canada and US on the forest. But to get to the cabin, you need to hike 2 hours, and we saw a bear down the way we were going, so we started running back because there was a bear. So we didn't have the spray, and we had to wait like 1 hour to keep going. So that was a surprise.
Oh, Lord Jesus. What about you, Franny? Have you ever?
For me, I think I didn't realize how close Detroit was to Canada. So when I went to Detroit, it's like here's the water, and literally on the other side was Canada. And I was so upset because I didn't have my passport or anything to like make that excursion. So now I want to make sure I get a passport card that's like always in my wallet because a lot more states are bordering like Canada or the reverse of Mexico. Like I lost out on the opportunity from San Diego also to go to Mexico because of not having my passport. So I don't want to make that mistake again.
Yes. I actually did the opposite. I left my passport purposely at the hotel so I didn't feel tempted to cross because I was by myself. So I'm like, I don't want to be caught up somewhere and like, yes, so I left it purposely. Well, thank you so much, Jose, Franny, and Carlos for sharing this, all of your expertise on how to make sure that people maximize their domestic travel because you are like pros at this. And please follow them. Franny has a blog and her blog is freaking amazing. Like she gives you every detail of everything you have to do. And Carlos, like the way he documents his travels and he posts every single day about any trip in his stories. And Jose, he's like an itinerary master. So make sure you follow the three of them because you're going to learn so much from them. Thank you so much again for being here and looking forward to what we built here with Latino World Travelers and echando nuestra comunidad pa'lante, right? Thank you.
Thank you so much.